Hello. So in our last video, we added a post request to our server. So right now our server is capable of doing a get and a post using the link that we created with localhost 3000/books. Now, as we can see, the place is already getting crowded. So we already have two requests that our server can interpret, and then we can add several more. Of course. So because we can add several more other requests, our application and our file here will get really crowded at a certain moment. So what we can do about it is to create a router. So using that router, we will be able to take hold of this and put them together in one place, so that it will be easier to manage. So let's do that. And of course, as usual, we will need some prerequisites before we start changing the code we already written. So basically, we'll have to add a new variable, and we will say book router, and it will be equal with express.router. And besides that, we need to tell the application, our app, that we will use this router, and we can go a step further and organize even more and add another element to our URL, a /API. So this will be localhost 3000/API, and then after that we will have our book router. So what we actually did so far is to create this router that will hold all the requests that will have similarities that will be directed towards books, and we will put them in a special place, in a special URL with /API in front, and then the other URLs that we want to create for our books. So our router right now doesn't have any root inside of it. We will have to specify them. So we can go here, down here, and start writing the code for that. So we'll say book router dot route. So we'll create a route for it, and the route will be books/books. And inside this route, we will get all our requests that we did so far. So we will use the get request, so we can remove this app from here, and basically right now it will depend only on this router, and also the post request. It will be added here in our router. And of course, we can go ahead and remove the links from inside the get request and from inside the post request. Why? Because we already defined it here, up here. So basically, each time we want to go to our application, and let's say we want to go to do a get request, we will go to localhost 3000, then /API, then we will get routed to the book router, and inside of it we'll have to go /books. And depending on the type of request we have, we will get either a get or a post request out of it. So we start our server. Don't forget to restart every time you make changes on your file. And then after we start our server, we'll have to go, as I mentioned before, on the following URL. So localhost 3000, and then /API, as you can see we mentioned here. And then we will get to our router, and our router knows right now about the /books endpoint. So we will try to access the /books endpoint. So let's just try like this, do an enter, and as you can see, now after we restarted the application, we have again all the details from our book array, as we managed to call this get request. Of course, we can go even further and make a post request as well. We can now go on and add another interesting type of request, and this one is a put request, when we want to make changes to something that already exists. So we already created, we selected and now we want to modify something. So there are two aspects that we need to talk about here. But first of all, let's create another route. We will create another route because we will need something a bit more different, more specific for this type of request, of pull request. So you want to get from our server, when we when we try to make this modification, we will need to tell the server what is the ID of the book we want to modify. So in order to do that, we can use this type of syntax. So this is a request parameter. So basically, this is another type of parameter that we can add to our URL, and then we can later use, for example, for our put request in order to change something inside a book that we provide. We provide, of course, the ID for it. So let's go further and now add the put request. And of course, we will use the same syntax as we did so far. Remember, we don't need to use to add another piece of the URL here because we already defined it in the root. And now we can go further and see what we can do with the information we get from our request. So we will create a new object. We'll create a variable that will hold the object that we want to modify. So we will say let book modif equals books. And as I mentioned earlier, we will want to modify an object that already exists. So basically, we will have to take into account our array, and inside that array, we want to find the book ID that we give as a parameter. So we have a small syntax error. Oh, okay, I forgot about the arrow key function. So we will try to find the specific ID in our list. So we will do a find. We used the method find, and we will search inside that. And if the ID equals request.params.bookid, then we will return it, and we will fill up this this variable. So once again, we go to our let's say to Postman. We try to access this URL. We will give an ID, and when we get here, we will try to find that ID in our list of books. We will get it back and we will put it in a variable so that we can do changes to that object. So the changes we want to do is book modif dot, let's say, name. Maybe we want to change, we have some information about the name inside there that we want to change, to update. Book modif dot genre body dot genre, and the last one can. Okay, so what will happen here? So we get the object that we want to modify, and then for each element of inside that object, besides the ID, because we already take into account in the link in the URL, we will want to see if there's anything new in that body that we will give as a parameter when we make the request. If there is something that we want to add on our object and change, we will do that. And at the end, let's return it. Return the result, to the final result, to the user so that he can see that he did the modifications he wanted, and we'll say book modif. Okay, so we will send it as a JSON in a JSON format. So again, we used the parameters that we have here. We used request in order to get a param for the book ID. And then all the details that we put in our request body, the name, genre, author for this entity, we will use them in order to update the information in the object. Then we will send back to the user the information that we updated. So let's test now. Okay, so now we can test, as I mentioned. Don't forget to restart your server once you make the changes. So this time it will be a put request on localhost 3000/API/books And now we can see in action the parameter that I was talking about, the request parameter. So this is the way you want to add it. So now when we mention 3, it will go when we call this this request, the put request, it will take this parameter from here and it will search in our list to find the book with number 3. And what we want to change, what we have in this request body, we want to change the genre for the book number 3, make it an adventure, for example, and the author we will change it to test. And let's run it and see what happens. So so you can see that in the on the book with the ID 3 we changed the genre and the adventures. Thank you.